Hi all, let's have a look at a fascinating game between Anish, Giri and Magnus Carlsen recently. This was played in the GCT Croatia, so that's the Grand Chess Tour GCT. It's a 12-player classical all-play-all tournament, and the prize one was a whopping 325,000 US dollars with 90,000 US dollars for first place. So time control 130 minutes for the entire game with a 30-second delay from move 1. Okay, so Anish Giri playing white plays e4, Magnus plays the Sicilian defense, knight f3, knight c6, we have bishop b5. This is very popular, a kind of anti-Sveshnikov line, which I dreaded myself. e6, now white takes immediately without being prompted on c6. b takes, so of course black has the bishop pair now. But the structure is compromised, and this bishop sometimes has an issue on c8. We see d3, knight e7, h4, very interesting, h5, e5. And Magnus surprises Anish with d6. Usually there is the move f6 here. This has seen quite a few high-level games, this kind of continuation. And white's thought to be slightly better. So we have d6, bit of a surprise. E takes, now knight g6, so there's pressure on h4, this pawn's going to be recollected. Is this bishop going to have scope later on c8? That's a key consideration here, this c8 bishop. Knight fd2, and that seems to want to give up the h4 pawn, but to go to c4, protecting d6 is the issue for black. We have bishop takes d6. So if black did try and take on h4, pouncing on that kind of weakness of the last move, knight c4, and it's awkward for black. For example, knight g6, queen f3, with c6 hit. This position can end up being very, very pleasant for white indeed. So we have actually bishop takes d6, and now knight c4, and now the bishop retreats. Yeah, knight takes h4 here. There's knight takes d6 check, and then rook takes h4. Just to put that on the board. So we have here bishop takes, sorry, after knight c4, the bishop going back. And now knight c3. This really is looking like a pawn sack now. Magnus plays bishop a6. But again, it's got a bit of a poison to it, which is avoided really. If black does take on h4, then, for example, g3, knight g2, king f1 traps the knight. So let's assume this position with knight g6. Rook takes h5 is good there, so this is going to be very nice for white. And if bishop takes h4, you might think, queen f3 hitting c6, and again it's really quite tricky for black. This kind of thing, for example, was a disaster, bishop d7, knight d6 check, and then taking on f7. So it's a bit of poison taking this pawn, it seems, on h4. So bishop a6, we have queen f3, and our bishop takes c6, not minding c6 going. And it is a bit strange. Anish Giri is like in the top 10 in the world, and he's like taking a pawn which is doubled anyway. Black's got rid of the problem bishop. And there's backfire potential. You know, with this move, queen takes c6, there's actually backfire potential. This is a road, this diagonal road could be useful for black later. Of course, it's easy to say these things in retrospect. Just speculating that this could backfire taking this pawn, but it was double pawns to take out. So black didn't really care about that anyway. And has essentially got rid of the problem bishop in the position. An alternative looks... You know, let's take an alternative. D takes, knight e5. This position is interesting. This is an interesting variation where white could end up being much better, trying to play more dynamically. Basically, this kind of scenario. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in that variation. So, just D takes c4, inviting knight e5. It does seem like a very interesting line for white. On queen e4 that might be inferior. There's queen d4, and black should be getting the advantage there. But yeah, there's a dynamic way to play this with queen g3 here if knight e5. Very interesting stuff. So anyway, but this, it seems as though it's taking one of the double pawns So after d takes, now knight takes h4 is a pawn to be taken, and it means actually that this pawn could potentially undermine white on the king side later. White castles, and there is a potential battering ram just here, battering ram, and things are looking a little bit suspicious for white already here after castling. If queen e4, rook c8, this position with knight f5 looks as though black is okay as well. This is an interesting line. Anyway, it looks as though both sides should be okay there. So this idea of delaying casting with queen e4 is also, it's interesting to consider. But yeah, Anish castled, and we have now knight f5, knight e2, which looks really strange, you might think. Okay, so knight e2, yeah, maybe trying to parry knight d4 potentially, but knight e2 gives up a bit of control of d1. So knight e2 looks like a really passive move. We see rook c8, queen a4, and the queen's now gone into kind of Siberia land. And things are really working out quite well for black now, because Magnus now, in football terms, he takes possession really of this d file with this nifty move, rook c7, to pivot the rook here to d7 to take possession of a central file. Now, added to that, black's king is pretty safe. There's a mobile pawn here which can do damage as a battering ram, all the time activating the rook. And worse than that, there's a really nifty move available to black, which is queen a8, which will create basically a common square of attack of this pawn coming up to, damage potentially white's king side. So this is looking very scary for white after bishop f4, rook d7, taking possession of the d file. We have c3, giving the queen the opportunity to go backwards, but now really aggressive g5. It also, of course, supports rook ad1. That's the major point, immediately to support rook ad1 here. Okay, but Magnus just takes on d1 and now parks the queen on a8, protecting a7, and there's going to be a common square of attack with this pawn coming up. So this is looking really scary now after bishop c7, h4, and believe it or not, after f3, h3, the game actually ended here. Now f3 might not be like, what does white actually do here instead of f3? It's difficult to tell really what white's doing. White has what seems to be a little bit of control of the d file, but in the light of king safety, that's the overriding issue here for white. The king safety seems to be very poor indeed, and there's going to be a dreaded form pawn, h3, g3, queen g2 is mating with form pawn, which, as we know, is a lethal weapon in its own right. So, if f3 isn't played, just to give a simple example, that threatens mate. Bang, queen g2, checkmate. What is white doing here defensively? If the king, it's just a nightmare. If the king makes a run for it, it's too little, too late. It looks as though it's too little, too late. There's all sorts of nasties here. Queen f3 and rook h1 coming up. So we have actually, after f3, h3, Giri actually kind of realised the full horror of his position, and it's at move 23, and he resigns. It's shocking. It's really shocking, and I thought I had to cover this game. And there's reactions from various people like Gary Kasparov on Twitter saying it's Magnus's greater understanding of the game is reflected. It wasn't just an accident. There's a greater understanding. And in fact, it seems as though Magnus might have even discussed the positions in this variation with Kasparov, and Magnus back then, when he was being under Kasparov's tutorship, kind of might have expressed about the bishop here. It seems Magnus admitted, he wanted to get Anish out of his opening territory with this kind of novel d6. If we look at that in the opening, sometimes such a move with the double pawns of the c8 bishop, it's an issue. But Magnus, by getting rid of the c8 bishop and just doing a pawn sack, seemed to make use of this, what turned out to be a fantastic attacking diagonal. So yeah, a real shocker of a game. I've been meaning to cover it. It's been a bit hot here in the UK recently, very, very hot, and I've been missing doing these videos. So I hope you enjoyed this one a little bit, and I hope to cover some more Magnus Carlsen games pretty soon. But this was a real shocker. It still shows that even in really high level super grandmaster chess, things can go disastrously wrong, which is because chess is such a rich game full of so many possibilities for going wrong. It doesn't matter how good you are, you can still have this kind of disaster. So yeah, a great advert for the complexity of the game really as well. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy the game video, please click on the top left box, which should appear shortly. Become a member at chessworld.net. Play other YouTubers. You can also test yourself on the variations covered in this and other game videos with the improved menu, the puzzle books option, which has a link to the annotated game. Comments, questions, donations, see the description. Like, share, subscribe with the notification bell. Really appreciated. Thanks very much. Okay, let's have a look at the puzzle book for this game. Not too many variations covered. It's a pretty short game. So Sicilian, Bishop B5, anti-Svechnikov. If you want to find it. So in this position, white to play for a clear advantage. I think we expressed G3 is the backfire. We can even trap the knight in that line. Now here, I think we can just play... Oh, was it Queen F3 first? I think Queen F3 or Rook takes H5. Rook takes H5 looks tempting. Oh yeah, this is just pretty straightforward. We're hitting C5 and probably following up with Bishop E3 later. That's a great target, C5. Now here, I think this one, Queen F3, and it can cause just disruption. That weakens D6, and this line, knight D6, is a disaster for black. So in this position, white to play for a clear advantage here. I think G3. Oh. Okay, what was the move? Oh, targeting C5, right. And now G3? Yeah. It can be very pleasant in some of the scenarios. Black to play for a clear advantage here. I think Queen D4 is the key move in this line. And then taking on C4, no problem. Here, yeah, this is just at the end. This looks devastating, this kind of stuff. I think just H2 will do it, and we can even Queen or something. Okay, whatever. Bishop G5. It's all winning, I think. Carnage. Okay, so if you want to check that out, but also just to let you know, you might want to check out some puzzles actually from my games. So I put some from the ICC and Chess World here and here and other sites. So there's checkmate puzzles to check out. Some simple ones. We're in check first, but yeah, rook and knight mating there. So there's a simple mate, quite a large one there from various sources, and there's another one there. So yeah, I'm having fun with these puzzle books at the moment, creating them. Hope you check that out too. Okay, that's at the improved menu of Chess World puzzle books. If you want to check that out. Thanks so much.